It is officially June, and I want to talk about some of my favorite underrated players and compare them to guys who are going much higher in ADP and where you have an opportunity to capitalize on some premium value. I'm going to talk about a wide receiver and a running back. So let's kick it off first with the running backs. Now, let's look at player A. Player A is going right now at pick 76 in Dynasty startups. He has around 12.5 attempts per game last season, 1.2 targets per game. He averaged 60.2 yards per game, 0.47 touchdowns per game, and 9.42 fantasy points per game. He is a guy who's starting to get hype in this offseason, but he's on an offense that has plenty of questions. Now let's talk about the other guy, the guy who I think is a huge value in Dynasty leagues right now. His ADP is 115, which means he's going 40 picks later. He is older, so age is playing a part in this. He's averaging 14 attempts per game, 4.46 targets per game, 83.23 yards per game, 0.62 touchdowns per game, and 15.4 fantasy points per game. Now, player A is Cam Akers. Player B is James Conner. Of course, age. That's why there's a huge differential in value here. But that is not really a good enough reason for me for these guys to be this far apart, especially when you look at who these players are. Cam Akers, recovering from injury on an atrocious team right now. Their defense is terrible. Their offense has essentially just Cooper Kupp. And if you believe in Cam Akers, I am not sure Cam Akers is ever going to be or ever really was who people thought he was. And we know that James Conner actually has been that guy. If you have a team that is built to win now, James Conner is the easy running back I'd rather have over a Cam Akers, even with some of the hype he got at the end of last season and he's starting to get this offseason. If you plug it into the DLF trade calculator, here's the value disparity on these guys. Right now, Akers is worth James Conner and Elijah Moore, James Conner and Tyler Lockett, James Conner and one of 203, 204, or 205 in your rookie drafts. I am making those trades 10 out of 10 times, especially if you're a contender. If you can get Elijah Moore, obviously the hype on him is starting to slowly build and will continue to do so in the offseason. But if you can get him right now with James Conner for Cam Akers, I am doing that yesterday. That's how much of a crazy value I think that is. I think James Conner is probably a top 15 running back as long as he stays healthy. And the bonus with James Conner is you can go add his handcuff, Keontae Ingram, probably off waivers if your league isn't, if you're in a 10-team league, even if you're in a 12-team league, you can probably add him off waivers or trade like a future third-round pick or even a 2023 third-round pick and get Keontae Ingram just to lock up the handcuff because Conner does have some injury concerns and Keontae Ingram is probably the heir apparent if he does go down. Let's jump to the wide receiver, and this one is an interesting one. So player A is going in Dynasty Startups at pick 35. Player B is going in Dynasty Startups at pick 54. Pick 54. So let's look at what player A did last year. He averaged 7.2 targets per game, 48.6 yards per game, 0.38 touchdowns per game, 12.95 fantasy points per game. Player B averaged 6.7 targets per game, 59.7 yards per game, 0.47 touchdowns per game, 13.4 fantasy points per game, and believe it or not, these guys are on the same team. I'm talking about Deebo Samuel, player A, and Brandon Aiyuk, player B. In all reality, I would trade Deebo Samuel in Dynasty for Brandon Aiyuk straight up. But the nice part is that you don't have to do that. If you are trading Deebo Samuel for Brandon Aiyuk, you're probably getting something on top. If you plug them into the DLF trade finder, here are some player values that kind of even out to equal a Deebo Samuel if you're going for a Brandon Aiyuk. Miles Sanders. I am doing that right now, especially if you're a contender. Even if you're not a contender, I'm buying Aiyuk and Sanders over a Deebo Samuel. There's Christian Kirk. Now, he is another guy who's starting to get hype this offseason as Calvin Ridley is starting to kind of fade. People are starting to ask the right questions on Calvin Ridley. He spent time away from the game. He's a little bit older. Is Christian Kirk really going to be the target guy on this offense? And I think he will be. And you can get Christian Kirk right now and Brandon Aiyuk for Deebo Samuel, and that is a home run. Right now, if you look at another running back, Rachaad White. Now, I don't think Rachaad White's going to be this game breaker player. I just don't. But if you're adding him to Brandon Aiyuk Aiyuk for a Deebo Samuel, I think that's a win across the board. You're adding depth at the running back position, and you're honestly getting a better wide receiver for now and for the long term. Let me know your thoughts on these guys below, but I am buying Aiyuk and James Conner everywhere in Dynasty Leagues, especially James Conner if you're a contender, but Aiyuk is young enough where he can be an immediate impact player for your team now and for the foreseeable future. Buy these guys before it is too late. If you like this video, make sure to check out some of my other videos on the channel. I've got a rookie tier video. I've got some dynasty buys, some dynasty sells. Make sure to check them out on the 444 channel. Don't forget to be kind, do good, and I'll see you next time. Peace.